Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a great Saturday so far. I'm so excited about this talk. We're going to be doing it a little bit different. I mean, I'm excited every week, but we're going to be mixing it up a little bit. So normally when I do these talks, it's really based off of conversations that I've had. Because I find, and I mean, I'm sure you guys do too, that it's like there's almost like common threads between what people are going through. I just find that I typically every week will be having similar conversations about similar obstacles or issues. And so I do really focus on, like, I kind of pull out of that. I'm like, if all these people I'm talking to are talking about this, then that's a perfect conversation for our video, because so many people are probably also dealing with that outside of, the people I know one-on-one. So that's normally how I do it. But this week, one of the things I've been getting, or the next couple weeks anyways, I've been getting a ton of questions about, okay, well, what is mediumship? Like, what is a medium, and what kind of readings? Like, what's the point of a medium, if you will? And what exactly is it? So I am choosing to actually talk about that. So it's a little bit more structured than I normally do, because there's a few key points that I really want to get through. So if you see me kind of doing this, it's because I'm looking at my notes. And I do want to start by saying, okay, there are actually schools that teach this stuff. And so there's a lot you could go through and find a lot more formal stuff. I'm not going to teach you guys the formal stuff. If you want to know the formal stuff, just Google it, do your own research. I might at some point talk about a history. I don't know. But I really want to talk about my own experiences of it. And the reason I'm doing that is because I think it's more true to my brand, if you will, and what I represent, where this is my spirituality, this is my journey, and this is my interpretation of things. And so before anybody sends me a message that says, I disagree, that's fine. You are allowed to disagree, but keep in mind that I am a huge proponent of spirituality being your own experience, right? And of course, because I have specific clients, I want to attract clients who align with my own thinking, obviously. So what is a medium? Now, I love humor, and I'm a pretty dry humor. So sometimes when people are like, oh, what's a medium? Like, what's that? I'm not going to lie. I like to be like, yeah, I talk to dead people mostly because I like to see people's reactions to it. And it is pretty funny. I get some people laugh. I get some people like, give me this look. Oh, anyways, it's awesome. But I could see some mediums getting offended by that. And the reason, and I understand it, because the reason they would get offended by that is it's a real oversimplification of what we do. And it almost discredits the art and the beauty and the work that goes behind becoming a medium. And so what is a medium? I think in a nicer way of saying it, is essentially a person who is able to communicate with entities who are on the other side, so to speak, or have passed, okay? Now, that oftentimes, when we say like, oh, someone who's dead, someone who's passed, I think it's an interesting, and even pay attention for yourself if you're not someone who's familiar with it. Like, does it kind of raise a little bit of like fear within you? Does it like, that tingly things on your neck where you're like, ooh, the hairs on your neck? Because it's a really interesting thing, because there's a lot of fear around spirits and people who've passed and being able to communicate with those spirits. I think a lot of that really has to do with misinformation. I think it has to do with, a history, let's be real. We're really in a newer time where this stuff, before it was illegal, right? You couldn't do readings. You couldn't do, have mediums. Like, these conversation wouldn't be allowed, right? So obviously we've really evolved and changed, and there's more openness and there can be more discussion. But there's still a lot of people, especially if you've been raised in a religion, that it's pretty bad, if you will. I don't know, I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody, but I think it's like more considered to be almost like a devil influence. I don't know that for sure though, but that's what I'm just saying, like the strength of what the fear is behind it. And then also, even people who are open to this stuff, and even myself, I'll be really real with you. It's because of horror movies, right? Whenever we see ghosts, it's often in these like creepy, haunting, like these people like coming and doing these creepy things and those like white eyes, and it's terrifying. Like when you see, I just watched, I don't know why I did, but this like crazy movie where there was this, like the person woke up and there's this like spirit over them, like, and I was like, okay, who wouldn't freak out about that? You know what I mean? So that's kind of like, I think the culture of what we think about when we think about these spirits. And so oftentimes when we talk about mediums, I think there can still be a level of fear, because it's like, oh, like like what you see dead people. And I will say that's like the number, well, two really, but same but different questions I always get is one, oh my gosh, do you see ghosts around me? Or like two, oh, like when you came here, is there like lots of spirits around here? Like, did you see any? And I just think it's so funny. Like, it kind of makes me feel like a circus clown a little bit. And it's such an interesting thing because it's also speaks to what people think about mediums, really, still. And now I want to talk about this because the way that people communicate with spirit, it really depends on the person. It depends on the personality, it depends on their natural ability, and it depends on who and how they were trained to develop their skill set. Because yes, are there people that can completely see spirits? Absolutely. I'm not one of them at this point. I kind of do, but not quite. Like I always kind of thought that if you had the gift, you would just like walk around and see all these spirits, you know? And there are people who are like that. But the interesting thing, and why I think that mediums sometimes when we talk about being communicating with entities, it almost gets reduced to just visually seeing these spirits. But it's actually a beautiful, intricate art where mediums all develop in different ways. And oftentimes readings and that communication is through all sorts of different senses, right? So you get some mediums, like I said, that will see things, but you have other mediums who will get more images in their head. So they'll see things in their head. Like it's almost like, you know, having a daydream where it just like pops up into your head and you're like, oh, okay, well, this, and this, right? And it's a lot more, it's not quite that simple, but you'll have things that pop up in your head and these images that come in your head. Some of them are auditory. So it's like they get more, they hear more messages, I guess you could say. You have people who are really like physical, like they need to touch things and they really experience through touching things. Some people are really emotional and that's where the connection comes. Like it's actually it really is this diverse field of how people can give readings and how they can communicate with spirit. And so it's a very interesting thing. And I do like to share because I thought that people, like I previously said, that mediums really, some people were just born where they would see spirits. I am not one of those people. I think maybe when I was a little bit younger and I shut it off because it really scared me. But I was very surprised when I started my medium development because I knew I had gifts. Like mine is less about seeing things and just more of sensing, where ever since I was little, like really, like my intuition, if you could say, or just my knowingness that I would have about certain people and things and like why they would do certain things and certain events. Like it was just a knowingness that was, I would say, maybe a little bit more abnormal. So I always knew that I was gifted in this world in some capacity. I didn't know what that would look like. And then it was just through a series of events where I did meet an incredible man who ended up becoming who said, you know, you're gifted. Would you like me to teach you? And I was like, absolutely. And then I was surprised by the amount of work it took for me to actually develop my skill set. I was not an overnight success. It took a lot of consistency, a lot of practice, a lot of work. And because a lot of mine is really, and I would say a lot of people, I would say it's very consistent for a lot of people who are in this field. But for me, it was really really learning to hone into this intuition almost that I think I had pushed aside for a long time. And I am especially I've always had a real guiding voice in my head that always just seemed to be like this wise voice. And so that for me is where I started with my skill set. And that's how it kind of evolved from there. So it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. And I do want to say that I think, you know, understanding mediums, like it really is, each person is unique, you know, like any practice. I don't care who you are, or what kind of professional you are, you know, there's always a personality that comes into play into the skill set and the natural abilities of how they communicate and really their own brand of what they do. Now, I do want to say there is also what's called trance mediums. Now, trance mediums are, it's a form of mediumship where essentially you allow an entity to come and speak through you. And they could also do movement. It's not just speaking, but it's like they essentially, I don't want to say I guess you could say take over your body, but that makes it seem really scary and creepy. But it's just like you basically, the medium allows this entity to come and to experience through them, I guess you could say. And there's different forms of it. I would say a very famous example would be Abraham Hicks, where she's communicating. And that's, an awesome example, really wise, really fascinating and interesting. but that would be a form of trance mediumship. Now, trance mediumship, I didn't know about it. And my first experience, I was actually at a talk and I didn't realize it was going to be a trance lecture, meaning that the medium actually, so they channeled this entity and the entity spoke through her. So she had an accent, her body mannerisms were different. And I was just like, I was gagged. I did not expect it. I didn't know what it was. And I was just like, like, I probably looked so stupid, just like shocked by what was happening, but it was so cool, guys. Like, I was mind boggled and just like, this is wild, you know. It was such an experience, but definitely hairs on my neck. I was like, this is crazy. But obviously now that I was just kind of taken off guard by it. But it was cool. It was so cool. And so I am particularly, have a little bit of a soft spot because I do trance mediumship. I do more light trance mediumship. So I channel, so when I do readings, depending on the reading, I actually will channel some of my guides directly to give the messages. So I personally have a soft spot for that style of mediumship. Now I am going to go into, in the next video, a little bit more about my style and how I do readings, just to give an example of how they can be so different. I also want to talk about, like, if you are somebody who's wanting to look into, like getting a reading from a medium, just like things to look for in terms of ethics of mediumship, and then as well as the responsibility of you, the client, when you are coming into a space of getting a reading. So that's going to be the next week. Stay tuned. I am going to post a video, for what's called platform, later in the week. So, or I guess early next week, like mid next week, I'm thinking Wednesday, but we'll see. It's really cool. So it's me doing platform, which is basically when you stand at the front of a room and you do readings to people in the room and the strangers. So, and that'll be a really good introduction to sometimes like what readings can look like. I'm very grateful, to the church that put it up for me. Well, it's there on their website, but I'll link it in. And then from there, yeah, guys, I think, I do want to finish with just saying that I know this topic, as we talked about, can be scary for people, but I want to normalize it for you. Understand that these, like, spirits are essentially, they're people who were alive once. And just because they're in a different energetic plane doesn't mean you need to be afraid of them. Obviously, like, oftentimes, especially in this world, the spirits that are coming through, they're people who love us deeply and they really care about us. And so, to kind of get away from this fear of like thinking that when we talk about entities, we're talking about these evil ghosts. I don't think it's fair to spirit, and I don't think it's fair to our loved ones who maybe are trying to come through and give us messages. And so just to try to start chipping away and changing our mindset about they're just people in a different energetic plane. Okay. Like, just, that's it. And yeah, with that, I hope you guys have a great week. Stay tuned for that video, like I said, for an example of what that looks like. I'm not sure if I'll be doing it on YouTube because it's not my channel, but I will be posting it on my Instagram and Facebook. So that's AK Mediumship on Instagram and Facebook. The links are on the bottom here. And don't forget to subscribe, guys, so you don't miss anything. So like I said, have a great week.